Good evening, friends, family, faculty, invited guests, and members of Class of 2022. Welcome to our Convocation, and a special welcome to those joining us via the live stream. My name is Jack Riddle, but to many of my peers, I'm known as Gator. When I started my high school career, I was a small, introverted kid who had a hard time breaking out of his shell and always bottling up any emotion he had. No one would consider me a football player, much less a commencement speaker. And through the years of high school, I never thought that I would be the senior patrol leader of Yarmouth's Troop 35 or the co-captain of the football team. And I believe I never would have gotten here without learning what it means to be a leader. For me, leadership means many things. First, it means to lead by example, never telling someone to do something you wouldn't do yourself. As a leader of Troop 35, I had to be willing to work just as hard as everyone else to achieve the respect of my troop and get things done. Because when you're in the Maine wilderness, you don't have time or space for people refusing to do what needs to be done. A leader also needs to make sure everyone enjoys their time, so everyone's experience is positive. I remember last summer, I was a crew leader for the high adventure trip, starting from Chamberlain Lake to the East Branch of the Penobscot. We hit our first rapids, and 2 canoes flipped, and multiple scouts ended up in the water. That night, I listened to the scout's concerns and understood that he was miserable. Then, I reassured the scout that whitewater rapids were the best part, and I promised to make sure that we didn't flip on Webster Stream. He agreed to be my canoeing partner the next day. And we became, there were some close calls, but we didn't flip, and he didn't flip for the rest of the trip. In that moment, I led with kindness and understanding, and by being a supportive presence, I was able to get him through the trip. Some people think that being a leader is like being a boss, but I disagree. In my life, everyone has to do their part. In your life, everyone has to do their part. Being a leader means encouraging and trusting your peers and not doing their job for them. It never should be one person being a leader. Ideally, everyone is a leader. If not, then minor situations can easily turn into disasters. To be a leader is to serve your fellow teammates, classmates, coworkers, and your friends. To work side by side and give 100%. To lift each other up when they fall down. To face any challenge as a team. It's only then that we can become unstoppable. Our class has had its shares of challenges. Maybe we haven't been navigating rapids down the Maine woods together, but we have had many other difficulties in these 4 years, both individually and as a whole. And the way we emerge stronger is less afraid, is because of leaders among us. People who lifted others up, guided our class, stood for what was right, and helped steer this clipper ship to clear waters. As we leave Yarmouth High School and take on the next challenge, I want everyone to know that no matter who you are or where you come from, or what you did in the past, there's always a choice to be a leader in life, to serve your fellow peers by lifting them up, to be willing to work hard, to show up, and to never give up. It is my hope that everyone in this room today finds opportunities in their life to become a leader, to become the leaders this world needs, this place we call home. Thank you very much.
Hello and welcome. My name is Lexi Inger, and if someone had told me that giving a speech at the end of the year ceremonies had been a requirement of being student body president, I'm not totally sure I would have run. However, I am so glad I did. Working this year with my co-president, Amelia Costin, and the rest of the Executive Council, and our amazing advisors, Ms. Casey and Ms. Barr, has been an incredible experience for me. My role as co-president has allowed me to acquire new skills, learn what it means to be a leader, and push through obstacles including the COVID-19 pandemic and ever-evolving new protocols, the new age of change in identities at Yarmouth, and gender dynamics in the classroom and around the high school. Today, I am privileged and grateful to give this speech, to honor what I've learned both in and out of the classroom, and to share some insight I've gained about comfort zones. My freshman year, I learned about comfort zones. After a challenging first year of high school, I was drawn to the idea of developing leadership skills and learning more about myself. I applied to attend Seeds of Peace International Camp in Otisfield, Maine. Seeds of Peace is a program designed to help local and international students learn the skills of diplomacy and interpersonal problem solving to inspire a generation of people who want to work for change at home with greater levels of confidence, trust, and empathy. Seeds of Peace is a place where the youth are taught to seek peace instead of war, and to use words instead of violence. This was a place where campers were free to be themselves, as well as meeting others from different socioeconomic, racial, and religious groups. And along with typical camp activities, we engaged with topics of identity, privilege, and power. Everyone was free to be themselves. When I arrived at Seeds of Peace, I panicked. I had left my family and my friends behind. I had left familiar surroundings and all the familiar faces in Yarmouth, faces I'd recognized since kindergarten. I had left my comfort zone and I felt sick to my stomach. In fact, the very first welcoming dance activity left me wondering what I had gotten myself into. Counselors began to sing about Seeds of Peace. Show me how you SOP, I'll show you how I SOP. My hands are high, my feet are low, and this is how I SOP. Campers showed off their dance moves, highlighting their personalities. The boy ahead of me even did the worm, throwing himself to the ground and gyrating to the beat while the crowd cheered. When it was my turn, I did the disco, a safe bet, barely moving my hand from my ear to the tip of my hip bone before scurrying back into the crowd. I spent those precious first hours feeling extremely homesick, longing to be back in the small town of Yarmouth, Maine. And I was living for the phone calls from home. I remember sitting down in the lunchroom, hearing at least 3 different languages and not understanding any of them. As I looked around at the other kids in camp, I couldn't envision how to say hello or cross what felt like an impossible, impassable bridge of languages and cultures. I heard cheers and chants that I didn't know or understand. Chanting and dancing were thought to be a universal language that we all shared, but I just didn't feel comfortable joining in. That would require me to move out of my comfort zone, and I wasn't ready yet. I spent many of my first days reading alone, laying low, or clinging to a counselor. And although I felt safe, I didn't feel happy. I can't recall how I transformed from being the camper who no one expected to stay to someone whose life was changed by Seeds of Peace. I think maybe it happened the day I allowed myself to join the Seeds of Peace soccer team. And if you know me, putting on a sneakers and running after a ball and possibly getting whacked in the head is very unlike me. Maybe it occurred while listening to dialogues, where campers revealed their own truths, their hardships and aspirations, and detailed life in unsafe homes. Perhaps it was when I felt brave enough and safe enough to share my own story about the anti-Semitism I endured at school. It might have been when I attended Friday night services, where we lit candles and sang songs in Hebrew that comforted me and finally gave me the courage to understand and embrace my identity as a Jewish person. As a person whose identity had been disrespected and dehumanized historically. I finally understood that in order to feel comfortable with our own selves, we have to be open and vulnerable with others. Whenever the switch happened, I found myself becoming someone who woke each day early in the morning to run with a girl from California whom I'd met at breakfast. The camp was so physically tiny, we'd run around in loops until the morning bell rang and we'd race to the showers. Eventually, I stopped needing those calls from home. I was so occupied with camp activities, I didn't have time to think about what I was missing or the family time I craved. As the camp continued, I realized I had to let people get to know me if I wanted to make any friends. I had to trust that everyone around me wanted me to succeed and was there to encourage my new growth. This is where I learned about leaving my comfort zone. I learned that, for example, right now, speaking in front of all of you is another experience where I'm outside of my comfort zone. I've learned that when you move out of your comfort zone, you feel anxious, maybe terribly self-conscious, because you've entered your fear zone. When you come face to face with your fear zone and you decide to push through, you may come to see what you fear most, like rejection, loneliness, ridicule. Then you begin to grow and learn about yourself and others. You can begin to see that you can stop letting others' opinions affect your own choices and grow your self-confidence despite your fears. This is when life in what we call the learning zone begins. The day I left Seeds of Peace camp, I jumped into the circle for our departing dance. I sang loudly, waved my hands in the air, and danced as though I was alone in my room. I created my own made-up dance move, my hands flailing with enthusiasm. I began to enjoy my own discomfort, or at least how it helped me grow and change into someone I liked. I found exactly what I was looking for at Seeds of Peace. When I got to this camp, I realized I came from a small, sheltered town in Maine, and I began to acknowledge how much privilege I've had, to understand the abundance of resources available to me, and to appreciate all of my wise mentors in Yarmouth who helped me grow and learn as a person. I realize now that the point of this camp was to make me feel wildly uncomfortable. The point of leaving your comfort zone is to experience your learning zone. Yarmouth has been my comfort zone for the past 18 years. I could always walk down the hallways and see a familiar face. I'm so lucky to say I've been able to get to know so many of my peers in the class of 2022, and I'm so grateful for those relationships. As we say goodbye to Yarmouth, we're all leaving some sort of comfort zone, leaving families, friends, or peers, going to work, going to college, or heading out to explore the world. We all have to learn new skills, make new friends, and leave behind this bubble we call Yarmouth, Maine. I encourage all of you to embrace your discomfort, to dance with abdomen, and to speak in a universal language of vulnerability, and face the fear of the unfamiliar with your very best disco move. I can't wait to hear how it goes. Thank you.
I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. These are not my words, though I wish I had that kind of wisdom. These are, however, words I have walked by almost every day at my 4 years at Yarmouth High School, beside a portrait of Maya Angelou, a revolutionary author who has written so many influential poems, most notably in her autobiography, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. She was someone who used her words with such beauty that they changed the world. I love this quote. It encapsulates so much of my high school experience. Friends I have had and moved on from, the people I keep in my life now, teachers I love and consistently ask for advice. Each one of these people has made me feel a certain way. Whether it was words of encouragement or words that degrade, as Maya Angelou says, people may not remember exactly what you said, but they will remember how your words made them feel. Words matter. My parents wrote me 2 letters for me to open at my senior picnic, and they were beautiful. Not only did their words make me cry, but they made me feel loved. It was amazing to read the words they used to describe me, as well as the advice that they had to offer. My dad wrote about checking in with yourself every now and again, and making sure that you're being the best person that you can be. Not only do the words my parents wrote hold so much value in my heart, but both what my mom and dad said made me feel elated and cared for. They did this with just a page or 2 of writing. Their words are some that I will keep with me forever, along with the feelings I had while reading them. I think there is a sharp opposite to the feeling I just described. Slurs, hate speech, and words that dehumanize people, these words hold power. There's an exception to what Maya Angelou was saying. There are some specific words or phrases that will stick with people, ring in their ears forever. I have personally witnessed and been a victim to this kind of speech, and I bet that most everyone here has too. When I think back to the times I've been called queer or a faggot, no matter where I was, a sense of deep fear resonates with me. I remember the setting, exactly where I was, who I was with, who said these words, and believe me, I remember exactly what was said. It has taken many years to be able to stomach these kinds of interactions. Verbal harassment is an epidemic. It runs rampant everywhere in the world, yet it is typically not taken seriously. Harassment towards women, like catcalling, has been normalized in our society. I have a vivid memory from when I was 7 or 8 with my friends on the playground. We were whistling and hollering at girls in our grade because that's what we saw in movies. That's what we thought was okay to do. Later, I told my mom and my older sister about what happened, thinking I would get a laugh. Instead, I got 2 appalled faces looking back at me. My mom, who has experienced her fair share of discrimination in the workforce just for being a woman, promptly put me in my place. I listened while she explained how what I said could have hurt someone in a way that I didn't even know. I listened while she explained how my words hold power. I am thankful for that conversation for so many reasons, but mainly because it showed me a perfect example of a stable support system that was in place. A support system that nipped something in the bud before it could grow into an untamable weed. Too many times I have witnessed my friends be told that their problems aren't big enough, or when their problem is big enough, that it was their fault. Too many times I have witnessed my friends be brave enough to speak up just for nothing to be done, or for the consequences to pale in comparison to the original act. It is a slippery slope from language to action. This is the reality we live in right now. It's the reason that 1 in 5 women have experienced sexual violence in their lifetime. Not harassment, not assault, violence. And there's a really famous pyramid of sexual violence that is shown and taught in many anti-violence organizations. What it shows is how beliefs or jokes can turn into prejudice, which can turn into enforcing biases, which can turn into violence. I regret to say that not only have I witnessed, but I have been a part of this latter. Joking about women as objects can quickly turn into treating women like objects, because if you are surrounded by an ideology for a long enough time, it is easy to start believing that ideology no matter what it is. This is why I say it's a slippery slope from the words we use every day to our actions, and this needs to change. This sounds dark. It sounds gloomy, it's tough to stomach, and that's fine to say. It's really sad that we have this issue around the world, from our workplace to our classrooms, yet the class of 2022 has shown that we have the power to change the narrative. We did not hesitate to paint signs for the BLM protests during that summer of 2020. We gave speeches at assemblies to bring awareness to the climate crisis that has been handed down to us. Every day, we push new ideas to be implemented within our high school through the Student Senate. Too long has our generation had to sit back and watch the world. Now we are old enough to use our words and write the next chapters of history. I have not been a perfect kid in high school. I bet there are multiple teachers here who have many, many stories about how I've been a nuisance in class, how I've never known how to shut my mouth or when to give an ounce of respect. Miss Casey and Miss Pinkowski, I apologize. On the other hand, I feel as though I've grown up a lot from a kid who used to say things to try to be cool or to fit in, no matter if those things hurt people. I'm truly sorry for anything that I may have said that sticks with someone to this day. I hope you can forgive me. More importantly, I hope you believe me when I say that I've learned a lot and I'm trying to do better. Thank you all to my lovely friends who have made my time here so much more fun than I ever could have imagined. I've learned not only what to look for in friends, but also in role models. Hang on. Miss Kerrigan, Mr. Pittman, Mr. Biscup, Mr. Russell, Miss Highland, Pat, and the list goes on. I thank you all profusely for the amazing things that you all have given me. From words of wisdom to being someone to chat with, you have all played a huge role in my high school career. It really is the little, everyday things that have made the biggest impact. Miss Kerrigan leaving her door open during her free period so that students can chat whenever it is needed. Miss Highland making sure every morning that our advisory talks to one another instead of looking at our phones the entire time. And even though that gets annoying, I thank you for it. YHS has a lot of work to do in the upcoming years, and that work is urgent. I've seen the new energy coming into the building with my younger sister and her class of 2026, bringing a new fearless mindset, amazing ideas, and a willingness to use their voices to enact change within our world. I am so incredibly excited to see what the new students bring to the table, because I know their voices will be groundbreaking. Thank you to the many students from my class who have implemented amazing clubs and systems for people to be a part of at our school. We are unbelievably lucky for that. As for everyone graduating, good luck to you all. I can't speak for everyone else, but I know that I'm pretty scared of what the future holds. Yet, I find courage in this important truth. Each of us holds power in our words. Each of us has a choice with every word we speak. Let's choose to make a positive change using our voices to make the world one that we want to live in. Thank you.
My name is Alice Donahue, and tonight I have the pleasure of introducing our keynote speaker, Mr. Dylan Toms. A 2018 graduate of Bates College, Mr. Toms is currently a middle school science teacher in Colorado. Mr. Toms taught science and coached the cross-country running team and Nordic ski team at Yarmouth High School from 2018 until 2021. His first year teaching was our class's freshman year, and because of this, he had a big impact on many of our high school journeys right from the beginning. Whether he outran you in a 5-mile run or taught you about the difference between igneous and sedimentary rocks, he was and remains a prominent figure adored by all. You might remember him by his everyday outfit of a flannel and a Bates vest, or by the iconic cow print Nordic suit, but regardless of what he was wearing, he always had a warm smile on his face and a good joke to share. Now let's hear a round of applause for the man who traveled all the way from Colorado to speak to us today, Mr. Toms.
You're gonna make me cry. I probably will cry before the end of this. So, I did have 10 minutes of jokes about Todd Shaw, but unfortunately, he's not here tonight. It is past his bedtime apparently, so we're just gonna throw out these pieces now. All right. I want to thank the class of 2022 for inviting me to speak this evening. I don't think you will ever know what this honor truly means to me, but I hope to give the love I have, tears I have shed, and longing for what you all have showed me during my tenure at Yarmouth and beyond, the justice in which it and you all deserve. I know that I'll come woefully short of expressing the gratitude I have for each and every one of you. My colleagues, the parents, guardians, and family members, the entire Yarmouth community. But most importantly, you, the graduates. You have forever touched my soul in what you have done by asking me to this stage today. Please know that no matter where I am in this world, whether it be Maine or Colorado, you forever have an ally and a friend with me. You are the first class I ever taught and coached, and you will forever be the first class. No one will ever hold that title again. And as I look out over you all sitting here today, I can't help but smile. We didn't screw up that bad. As some of you already know, and as Alice pointed out, thank you, Alice, I moved to Colorado last year to live with my partner, Emma, whom I've been lucky enough to be with for the last 2 years. I took a teaching job as a 7th and 8th grade science teacher, and now intimately know the difference between high school and middle school teaching. I'll allow you to fill in between the lines there. I went from Yarmouth, Maine, a population of 8,500, to the metro area of Denver with a population of over 3 million people. That's 3 Maines. And yes, I measure population in Maines. And I moved over 2,000 miles away from the majority of my friends, my family, the best job with the best people, and a state that I have an unabashed love for. All to go to this state that is either completely horizontal, completely vertical, or entirely on fire. I'll be honest. It has not been the easiest move for me. In fact, one might argue that this crazy, insane, out of character move has been the most difficult but yet rewarding thing I have ever done, and it has. So, on December 2nd, which was a particularly difficult day at school where everything that could have gone wrong did, I received a text from an unknown number. Being the prompt and forthright communicator I am, I simply placed my phone into my desk drawer and went on with the rest of my day. I apologize. When the last student had left, and I was finally able to breathe once more, I sat down to read this mysterious message. Alice Donahue had gotten my number from her dad and reached out on behalf of the class to ask me if I wanted and was willing to come back to Maine in the spring to speak tonight. The answer was an unequivocal yes. But what I haven't told anyone was this. My first reaction when I read that message was locking the door to my classroom and going to the back of the room in my science room and crying for close to 20 minutes at a lab counter because I was so touched by what you all did. After the move and the transitions and the continuous loss I and we have all experienced, to be asked to return to celebrate something so worthy of celebrating you, in a place that had come to mean so much to me, Yarmouth, I was overcome and I broke down. This is what your convocation today means to me, and your graduation later. Your former teacher and coach. Y'all did it, and I'm so proud of each and every one of you. So, what was it that I would share with this graduating class? What had defined our time together as teacher and student, coach and athlete? My robust, way too wordy emails, the pep talks before cross-country and Nordic ski races where I made certain slips I will never live down, my impeccable fashion taste with Carhartt vests and flannels. Thank you, Alice. What was it that had come to define my experience with you all that would be worthy of a speech for you? And so began the process of running through various topics, metaphors, poems, past speeches, and deep into the darkest depths of a Gen Z hell. The TikTok reels on Instagram. It was there in my moment of vulnerability and weakness that I struck the proverbial pay dirt I had been seeking. It came in the form of a simple reel showcasing a modest foam clog and their various accoutrements. Now, how had I not thought of this? I had lived a life defined by them. I had taught in them, sung their praises, and had promised a certain entire class that I would be at their graduation and convocation in them when it was their time to graduate. Crocs. They were staring up at me this entire time, and all the inspiration I needed was just to look down at my foam-holed clad foot. So, the most versatile, practical, and I might argue fashionable clothing item a person can wear in their day-to-day life is the humble Croc. Much like a quality education, Crocs are the great equalizer. I have friends who have graduated from Harvard and Yale, and what do they wear today? Crocs. I know farmers who wake up at 4 a.m., drink their coffee black, and put on their Crocs before long days of work. I have friends who are now lawyers and have passed their bar exam, and what do they slip on once their day is done at the office? Crocs. We wore them after ski meets, and my brother hiking the Appalachian Trail today has a pair swinging from his backpack. Liberals wear them, conservatives wear them. My grandfather, who is 84, has a sweet pair of orange ones. And my cousin, who graduated not just last week from the 2nd grade, walked across that stage to receive his 2nd grade diploma in a sweet pair of tie-dyed ones. I wore a pair of camouflage Crocs, much like these, almost every day of my first year at Yarmouth. I'm not sure if I necessarily embody the ethos of camouflage, but I'm a sucker for a good juxtaposition, and I love those things. There's no better metaphor for how one might live their life than the simple Croc. Crocs are humble. They do not boast. Their simple complexion tells you exactly what they are and what you are purchasing. But dig a bit deeper, and you realize that that rubbery foam veneer hides the miles of travel, adventure, and stories that were worn into their soles. Lasting marks, tears, paint splatters tell the stories of a life well lived, but not demonstrated to the world in a way that brags. Rather, their subtle stains and sun-faded colors say, I lead a full, adventurous life, and I take advantage of the opportunities that arise before me. While broken in, a Croc still retains its shape. It remembers where it comes from, and it takes those experiences forward onto future paths and journeys. The gibbets, or those weird, obnoxious things you put in the holes of Crocs for the non-believers in the room, show the values a person holds, or at least their sense of humor. Crocs do not pretend to be flashy. They aren't made of the finest leathers in the world. They aren't exclusively sold at Brooks Brothers or Gucci. You find them at Rennie's, Martin's, and my dad's favorite Ace Hardware store. Crocs are what we should strive to be: humble, effective, and unabashed in our morals. The Croc is better than no one, but due to its humility, approachability, and versatility, has impacted everyone. I know that because we all have an opinion on Crocs in this room. Crocs are simple, practical, and effective. They are multi-purposed, and whether you are on the river or painting houses, from fishing adventures to wedding receptions, adventure strap up or adventure strap down, the Croc is a true versatile footwear that can be worn at almost all occasions and in almost all scenarios. And the last several years of our lives have shown us the need for versatility, to be able to roll with the punches and still get the job done, or realize that the job we set out to do actually was not the thing we needed to address at all. To be practical and versatile like a Croc means you are able to adapt to this ever-changing world. It allows you to be real with your friends and family and admit that you, just like Crocs, unfortunately, don't have all the answers. Practicality and versatility means using all your resources to solve issues, all the issues you find yourself in, even if those resources come in the form of asking for help, which it's okay to do. You have just received and navigated an amazing 13 years of education. I would argue the best in Maine. You have learned the intricacies of writing, literature, science, mathematics, health and wellness, foreign language, and so much more. You have competed in sports, winning a multitude of accolades. Many of you will go on to receive 4 more years of education at institutions of higher learning around this country, many with fancy names and excellent pedigrees, and they are all amazing. Some of you will choose to go directly into the workforce and begin making an impact on your life today and your community's lives today. and I applaud you for knowing your path and capitalizing on it. Others still will take time off to explore your options, work for a bit, travel, take a class here or there, and then make a more definite decision later on. And some of you are making these plans as I speak right now. And others who once thought their plans to be set in stone will change them once again. For all of us, and I include myself in that, these plans can be exciting, scary, confusing, overwhelming, and what can seem like an impossible task. But what really matters isn't the path. It isn't the path you have chosen. I don't care whether that path has the label of Princeton or scooping ice cream or cleaning toilets. The path you choose to walk down after you leave this place we call Yarmouth does not matter if you are unable to apply the lessons of the path to where you are headed so that you may grow as a person. Understand that your happiness and your path there should not cost you, but the tools that you may purchase or acquire along the way, education, careers, experiences, may allow you to build the happiness you all seek. Simply put, the crock is a humble representation that the path we choose in life does not matter, unless we are willing to allow ourselves to experience the path and journey under our feet and apply it to our own happiness. They are the embodiment of a lesson from the path, realized and acted upon. My happiness was realized when I chose to embrace who I was and not who I was striving to become, to live what I understand to be a simple life, a life defined by my actions and supported by the people I have chosen to surround myself with. I teach and coach because it is what I am supposed to do. I am infinitely proud of my alma maters, but I failed time and time again to see myself and passions completely represented in the communities I called home. At Monmouth, I was a prep. At Bates, I was the poor hick from rural Maine. And at my family summer camp where I grew up, lived, and worked, I was the outdoorsy science nerd. The truth? I contain aspects of all those things and much more. And so don't all of you. Yes, you are all Clippers, but your worth extends beyond those titles. Use what you have learned here to create the person who you want to be. Use these tools to build up yourself and your fellow person. Use these tools to be happy people, because it is happy people that change the world for the better. Be more like a croc. For those of you that took a class with me, you may remember that on the last day of class, I read a short story. The story was read to me many times as a child, teenager, and young adult by a close friend of mine. A story that played a huge role in who I am today and the life I would live. When asked why I had chosen to pursue the field of education, many reasons came to mind besides the obvious money and fame it has brought me. The love of subject, the impact, shaping the next generation, integrating oneself seamlessly into a community. But what I continuously circled back to was this story. What I never got a chance to say, and now do, was that my hope in sharing that story with all of you was so that you would understand me and where I had come from. That you might hear that story and see it the same or differently, but derive meaning from it and apply it in your own life in a way that mattered to you. I think it's only fitting that on your last day with me, you get to hear that story one last time. So, at the last session on the last morning of a 2-week seminar on Greek culture, led by intellectuals and experts in their fields who were recruited by Dr. Papadéos from across Greece. Papadéos rose from his chair in the back of the room and walked to the front where he stood in the bright Greek sunlight of an open window and looked out. We followed his gaze across the bay to the iron cross marking a German cemetery. He turned and made the ritual gesture, "Are there any questions?" Quiet quilted the room. These 2 weeks had generated enough questions for a lifetime, but for now, there was only silence. No questions? Papadéos swept the room with his eyes, and so I asked, "Dr. Papadéos, what is the meaning of life?" The usual laughter filled the room, and people stirred to go. Papadéos held up his hand and stilled the room, and looking at me for a long time and asking with his eyes if I was serious, and seeing from them that I was, "I will answer your question," he said. Taking his wallet out of his hip pocket, he fished into a leather billfold and brought out a very small, round mirror, about the size of a quarter. And what he said went like this. When I was a child, during the war, we were very poor, and we lived in a remote village. One day, on the road, I found the broken pieces of a mirror. A German motorcycle had been wrecked in that place. I tried to find all the pieces and put them back together, but it was not possible. So I kept only the largest piece, this one. And by scratching it on a stone, I made it round. I began to play with it as a toy and became fascinated by the fact that I could reflect light into the dark places where sun would never shine, in deep holes and crevices and dark closets. It became a game for me to get the light into the most inaccessible of places. I kept that little mirror, and as I went about my growing up, I would take it out in idle moments and continue the challenge of the game. As I became an adult, I grew to understand that this was not just a child's game, but a metaphor for what I might do with my life. I came to understand that I am not the light, nor am I the source of the light, but the light, which is truth, understanding, and knowledge, is there, and it will only shine in many dark places if I reflect it. I'm a fragment of a mirror whose whole design and shape I do not know. Nevertheless, with what I have, I can reflect light into the dark places of this world, into the black places in the hearts of people, and change some things for some people. Perhaps others may see and do likewise. This is what I'm about. This is the meaning of my life. And then he took his small mirror and, holding it carefully, caught the bright rays of daylight streaming through the window and reflected them onto my face and onto my hands folded at my desk. Much of what I experienced in the way of information about Greek culture and history that summer is gone from my memory. But in the wallet of my mind, I still carry a small, round mirror. So, go forth. Go to college and university. Join the workforce and armed services. Travel and experience the world and all that it may offer. Become doctors and lawyers and carpenters and welders and scientists, farmers and teachers. Make friends. Find partners. Create community and love wherever you land. But in all that you do, have the soul and fortitude of a croc. Humble, effective, and versatile. Be willing to walk the extra mile for others as others have done for you, and be a mirror in all that you do. For the world needs mirrors to shine and reflect the light now more than ever. I am so proud of the people you have all become and are becoming, and thank you for making me a better person as well. Remember, live a simple life, wear Crocs, and always be a mirror to all. Thank you.
I'd like to close with a few memories. 16 years ago this month, I sat in Superintendent Ken Murphy's office and accepted the offer of a teaching position here at Yarmouth High School. I had dreamt of hearing those words ever since my long-term sub-position at YHS, which I had held several years before that, had not resulted in a job offer. Details of that meeting with Dr. Murphy are hazy, but what I remember vividly and with sweeping emotion is the arrival about 30 minutes later of my closest friends who dropped all the plans they had made for that Friday evening to sit in my kitchen and celebrate this dream come true with me. When my daughter Carolyn was 15 months old and my son Robbie was 10 days old, my husband's mother lost her battle with cancer. I was nursing a newborn and helping Jim choose a flower spray for the casket. Details of those days are hazy, but what I remember vividly and with overwhelming relief are Nancy and Diane, the wives of two of Jim's friends, showing up on the morning of the funeral and letting me know they were going to take care of all of the children, of relatives and friends, including my two little ones, while we attended the church service, so I didn't need to worry about any part of that. A few years ago, I planned a holiday party with a decorated home and tons of food and drink, and for various reasons, only a handful of the dozens of invited guests showed up. Details of that afternoon are hazy, but what I remember vividly and with overwhelming astonishment is the surprise visit the next day of all 10 of my former advisees, the ones who had just graduated the previous June. They were headed home for winter break and had made my house the first stop of their vacation. We hung out for hours and made very good use of all that leftover food. One final memory. In July of 2020, my son Rob said, "I do," to the love of his life, Caitlin, in Alaska. However, thanks to COVID, instead of the planned destination wedding with 150 guests, they got married in a field, surrounded by a handful of Kate's family and friends, while we watched on a computer screen, in separate squares from each other and from them, crying our congratulations. Details of that day are hazy. But what I will always remember vividly and with overwhelming elation is the dance we all shared last summer at the replacement reception that we held at our house here in Yarmouth. Me and my husband and my daughter Carolyn and my younger son Matt and Rob, arms around each other, heads bowed together, with the Chainsmokers' Kygo family blasting joyously from the rented sound system. What these memories have in common is presence. P-R-E-S-E-N-C-E, presence. People being there, witnessing, supporting, sharing. People going out of their way, people changing their plans, people taking time, putting others first in those moments. If this pandemic has taught us anything, it's that being together, not on a screen, but in flesh and blood, makes all the difference. Look around you. How wonderful it is to be back here together in this sacred space for Convocation. You, the fabulous members of the class of 2022, no doubt will do great things. You'll fix problems, you'll solve mysteries, you'll invent cool new stuff. You'll make lots of mistakes, and you'll learn from them. You'll live lives filled with joy and sorrow and everything in between. But what I most wish for you is that when you have those opportunities to be present, to show up, to be the vivid part in someone's hazy memory, you drop everything and just go. Just be there. Be present. they'll never forget it.